completely get it. But anyway, I'm going to go to you, Mick, first, because you have had this big announcement that you are going to put a deal to your members. I suppose first question is, you know, why? And second, why not a recommendation from you?
Well, it's not recommended because it's below inflation and we haven't got a comprehensive pay deal. But what has happened after the collapse of the government's programme of shutting all ticket offices, they've now come to us with a pay deal that's got no conditions on it. Previously, they were saying the only way we could get any form of pay rise is by accepting all these ticket office closures, accepting thousands of job cuts and ripping up our members' terms and conditions. That's all gone from this deal.
So that's all been separated into separate negotiations?
It will go into negotiations starting next February, and that will go on to April. So we've got 6 months of downtime, if you like, a pause. And what we've also got is the ability to negotiate on those issues rather than just have them imposed. So we've got an unconditional offer, but the offer is still way below the rate of inflation, which is why we can't recommend it. There'll be a lot of back pay for our members because they haven't had a pay rise for so long, and we've still got to do with pay issues this year for the 23 year and for next year, which is coming up quickly over the horizon. So there's a lot to do, but this will allow us to put it to our members, and then we can have some industrial peace, at least for the next 6 months.
I mean, it does sound...
I mean, definitely worth considering, right? I would probably accept it. Most people haven't got an inflationary pay rise outside of some very kind of niche professions. So getting there to be what is essentially still like a 7% pay cut when you look at 16% inflation since the start of the inflationary pressures, with what, a 9% rise over 2 years. So that also includes like further inflationary pressures. Even if we do hit the Bank of England target for inflation, which is 2%, there'll be at like half the level of inflation over that 2-year period for that pay rise. But it's better than nothing, right? It's better than most people in the private sector are getting. So now that all of the terms and conditions changes have been taken away, which was the main sticking point, right? Because they accepted the same pay deal from Network Rail for people like maintenance crews, who were people who got the first deal originally, like a year ago. It was literally a year ago now, almost. It was February that they closed in on a deal with Network Rail. That's how long this dispute has been going on and how long I've been covering it. But that was with maintenance crews getting the 9% pay deal with no change to job terms and conditions. And so that's why there was always this sticking point with Rail Delivery Group, because with RDG, the government kept forcing there to be these conditions like the ticket closures and all of these job cuts, etc., etc. And now that's been taken away. I expect them to ratify and to accept this deal, because they accepted the same pay deal for the other areas of the RMT as well, because those conditions weren't there. Even so, the fact that it's gotten to this point, essentially specifically due to government intervention, and because Mark Harper is an awful individual and a terrible negotiator, i.e. he refuses to negotiate and indemnifies RDGs they have no reason to negotiate, is why we're in the position at this point. But at least we might have some respite for the next 6 months or so, and the hard-working people of our railways might actually get a pay rise that they deserve.
Sound to me as though, even though you're not making a recommendation, you sort of expect your members to accept it.
Well, we said all along it's not just about pay, because our members value their terms and conditions. Sure. Many people in this country don't have terms and conditions anymore. We've still got them, and we intend to defend them vigorously during. But
that's an argument for next year.
That's an argument for next year when we get the proposal. So they've backed down on all of those issues.
And just to be clear, though, because this is obviously something lots of people watching will want to know, I mean, it sounds to me as though you can give people confidence that the trains are going to run pretty normally from now till the spring.
Well, if our members accept the deal, we've still got a live strike mandate, the 4th one on the trot. If our members reject this deal, we will put down more industrial action, there's no doubt about it, and the companies will pursue their agenda. But we've got a job security guarantee all the way through to the end of next year now.
So, anyway, it sounds to me as though you think...
And I think it's really important to narrow in on what he's saying here about terms and conditions, right? They are unionised. They fought hard for the terms and conditions that they won fair and square, and they want to keep them. They can see what's happened with the rest of the industries in this country, the non-unionised industries that have all of their terms and conditions ripped out. We have a race to the bottom. Supply-side labour market reform hasn't just reduced the amount of pay people get, hasn't just reduced living standards, it's reduced terms and conditions. The advent of the gig economy, as Solly points out in chat. We've had plenty of the ways in which that the terms and conditions of yesteryear, the pensions of yesteryear, they are a thing of the past. They are not things that we get anymore. And the fact that even during tight labour markets, these things aren't being given to people, just shows you how powerful unionisation is, not just to get better pay, but to get better terms, to get better conditions. And this is why, even if you're not in the public sector, if you are watching this, you need to be unionised, you need to be active, you need to get other people to join the union, you need to get your union recognised, you need to get all of the people that you know in your workplace to join a union, not just because you get legal protection, you get all of those benefits from being unionised yourself, but until you get a critical mass, you can then start collectively bargaining with your employer. There is no reason not to whatsoever, and the reason why the RMT and our railways still have good conditions despite railway privatisation is because they have continued to be unionised and fought tooth and nail and refused to accept cutbacks on conditions, right? You, in your industry, in your private sector industry, if you're a person who's watching, you would still have those terms and conditions if you were unionised, if you'd not backed down, in the way that the RMT and the rail unions haven't backed down over all of these years, right? The only way we will win those conditions back, the only way we will get back to the world that our parents grew up in, the conditions that you were afforded for your vocation, for your job, is by higher union density, not just collective bargaining, but sectoral bargaining across industries, so people can't have a race to the bottom, right? You need to make sure you're unionized regardless of where you work. If there are people who are watching who will not have joined a union, what are you doing? Join one right now, right? Even if you don't get a bargaining position for your full union membership across your workplace, you still get your workplace protection. You still get free legal advice. You get all of those protections that you would not get if you weren't. It's very much worth it. And then if you do get that critical mass, you'll be earning way more than you were before. You should join a union right now. Do it. What kind of things would be included in these terms and conditions? Is it holiday allowance and such? Yeah, so holiday allowance, working hours, timetabling, all the kind of scheduling stuff, because obviously all Sunday work on the railway is discretionary at the behest of the people who work there rather than forced Sunday hours. Things like additional sick pay, all of these things, any other benefits you have on top, like any kind of extra medical help. Like in my previous job, which was private sector, I had Medicash extra help for when you want to go private on your medical care. I helped for my transgender healthcare, the job that I had, but obviously I was in a vast minority of people who still have those benefits. There are loads of different terms and conditions that you get access to, or people used to have access to. Better pensions as well, like defined benefit schemes rather than defined contribution schemes, which are much worse the longer that you live, where it was defined benefit ones were much better, right? So there are loads of things that used to be really important, like having access to proper contracts rather than 0 hour, things like these, that were the norm before the supply side labour market stuff of the Thatcher years happened, and we led to the gig economy point that we are at now, right? These things were commonplace and they do not exist anymore. Only in the heavily unionised industries do these things still exist, and that's why wider union density is so important.